Good morning, everybody. Semi-retired Bob here. I talk about the carnivore diet and all things related to the carnivore diet. Today we're going to cover some of the basics. How to, why to, what to eat, what not to eat, and why some of those things might be causing problems and why they might not. First, let me say welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm glad you're here. I certainly hope you enjoy your time here. If you find anything about this video entertaining or useful or just a fun time, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. It's absolutely free and it does help spread the word about what I'm trying to do here, which is to show people, no matter what your age, you can get out there and get healthy. So today is my second full day in North Carolina. As you can see, I've got my jacket zipped up today. Hopefully there's not too much wind noise on the camera, because it's quite windy out today and it's only about 52 degrees. Oh, there's some purple and some white morning glories. Awesome. Let me see if I can't catch those in the shot. I don't know if they're going to turn out or not, but I'm going to give it a try there. I'll start carrying my big camera here real soon, and then I can take some good pictures of that kind of stuff. Of course, just my luck, by the time I carry the big camera, all the pretty flowers around here will be done for the year. But it's a bright sunny day out here today. I don't mind this at all. He said it's a little breezy and it's supposed to get cold on the overnights the next 3 or 4 nights, dipping down into the low 40s, high 30s. But it's supposed to be, 50 to 60 every day during the day, which is significant considering I was looking at the radar and there's a big storm moving through offshore out in the Atlantic, but I zoomed the map out to see more of the country than just right around me, and noticed that it was snowing in the mountains of West Virginia and in western Ohio yesterday. I don't know if it actually stuck or not, but there was definite blue on the radar. So I'm glad I got out of there when I did, because I don't like snow. I like snow. It's very pretty. I like to sit inside and look at it. Maybe next to a nice big roaring fire with a cup of coffee or hot chocolate in my hand and look out the big picture windows at it. But I am not a big fan of being out in the snow, and certainly not driving in it. But to begin at the beginning, what is the carnivore diet? Carnivore diet means you eat only animal-based products. There are some people that add other things into it, and you can experiment with it. If you find you do okay with it, that's perfectly okay. But if you are eating fruit, you are not eating a carnivore diet. Now, I'm not strictly dogmatic about this. If you find something you like that doesn't affect you poorly, you go right ahead and eat it. But if you're just getting started, I would do BBBE, which stands for beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. That's where I would start. Or if you've got a lot of autoimmune issues, or a lot of weight to lose, or you're just not feeling good and you want to get healthier, then what I'm doing for the October challenge is called the Lion Diet. And I eat just ruminant meat, which for me, being in the US and a guy on a retired guy's fixed income, I eat 99% of the food I'm eating right now is ground beef, because that's the cheapest. I just spent all that money in gas to get down here, so now I got to go into Walmart tomorrow and pick it up in the morning. I put an order in. I've got 30 pounds of ground beef, 3 of those 10-pound rolls that I'm picking up. And I'll divide that up into about 2-pound sections, and that'll get me to the end of the month, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I'm hoping to only have to go into town once before November the 1st, but we'll see how it goes. It's not like it's a long way into town. I mean, it's really only, I think, 8 miles into Mount Olive, but the less I drive my truck, the more money I can save for getting the rear end fixed. And the faster I get that fixed, the faster I can get out and see some more stuff. But yeah, that's the very basics of the carnivore diet. Now, most people, when you first start, the first thing that's going to happen is your body's going to start dumping its inappropriate inflammation. And with that loss of fluid, you're going to blow out a lot of electrolytes. So, she's out working on her flower garden again today, which looks wonderful. And she's got her little doggy out with her too. I can't tell exactly what kind it is, but it is a cute little dog. Love your flowers. But, where was I? I got distracted by the yappy dog. Oh yeah, electrolytes. So, make sure you're getting enough salt. And your other electrolytes, there's a couple of options out there. There's a Daily Minerals from Keto Chow. None of this is sponsored, by the way. But if any of them are listening and want to sponsor me, I'd be happy to talk to them. There's Drink Element. And if you're still working your way down and easing into carnivore, they have some flavors that are made with artificial sweeteners, and I'm told they're very good. I haven't actually tried any of them yet, but the one that interests me that I will probably order as my bottle of Daily Minerals goes down is the unflavored one. It's just, the salt, the potassium, and all that stuff. And there's no real danger with taking too many of them to a certain point. So if you take the one daily recommended allowance and it's a little more than you need in any one department, you'll just pee out the excess. It's not a big deal. It's one of those cases where having a little too much is better than having a little bit too little. So make sure you're getting your electrolytes. I primarily just use salt. If I'm going to be outside working on a hot day in the sun, then I use the whole spectrum of electrolytes. But we're walking past my friend's house now, and we're going on up the road because when I got back, it was not quite as far as I thought it was. I don't remember exactly, but I didn't quite do a mile and a half yesterday. So I think I'm going to go on up here about another 2 power poles. There's a street up there. I think I'll walk up to that street today and then turn around and go back. As you can see, it's 10 o'clock, so it's a little lighter on the traffic now that it's gotten a little later in the day than what I filmed yesterday, the one you're going to see today. So this is actually tomorrow. I'm going to confuse myself. But let's talk about one of the big elephants in the room, and that's fruit. Many people can handle fruit. You know, in keto, it's okay to have a few berries and a few nuts, that kind of stuff. But whole big pieces of fruit are not your friend. They're not carnivore. Like I said, if you find something you like and it doesn't affect you, you're welcome to, keep doing what you're doing. You do you. I'm not that dogmatic about it. But the thing to keep in mind with fruit, I'm sure everybody knows what fatty liver disease is. It used to just be called fatty liver disease. And then, because younger and younger people were getting it, they had to separate it out into both alcoholic fatty liver disease and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And they were trying to figure out why all these kids were coming down with a disease that had been primarily limited to alcoholics prior to the mid-70s. Well, the research found out that fructose, which is what's in fruits, is handled and only handled by certain receptors in the liver. And those same receptors are the ones that handle alcohol. So you can only handle just so much fructose at a time. Now, of course, if you're young and healthy and doing lots of high-intensity activity, you can probably handle a little more. talking to my viewers. I do have a handful of people 40 and under. And I'm thankful that you're here. I'm glad you're here. I hope you're getting something out of this. But most of my crowd is over the age of 40. And there's Sandpit Road. I don't know where Sandpit Road goes, but I do know this is where I'm going to turn around and head back for today. Well, like I said, a majority of my audience is over 40. And of that group, a great big chunk of them are over the age of 50. And then actually the majority of my audience is between the age of 50 and 70. And I've got a few that are over the age of 70. Thank you again. I'm glad you're here as well. But please don't come into my comments preaching the value and virtue of fruit. Because most of the people on my channel are not metabolically young enough or active enough to handle a bunch of fruit. And all you're going to do is prematurely kill them. Because the body can only handle so much fructose at a time. That's why, eating an orange is better than drinking a glass of orange juice, because orange juice is basically a great big blob of fructose dumped straight into the system that gets absorbed right away. At least if you're going to eat an orange that's got the pulp, which is fiber, which is undigestible until it gets into the intestines and gets fermented out. And that'll makes the release of it slower. So, for the most part, fruits are not okay. The occasional berry, because, raspberries you find growing alongside the road, and blackberries you find growing alongside the road, those haven't been as genetically bred as all the fruits you find in the store. But, your basic banana today, because the original bananas died out a long time ago. There was a pestilence that went through and wiped out a bunch of banana trees. So they started crossbreeding to make bananas that could survive better. And in the process, not just bananas, but all of the fruit that you find in your local grocery store is basically just great big bags of sugar. Grapes are supposed to have seeds in them. So, don't get confused with the basics of carnivore. You're just going to eat the meat, add the salt, and drink the water. And if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, you especially want to avoid things they're going to spike your blood sugar. Now, fructose does not spike your blood sugar, but glucose does. And just because you eat that great big piece of fruit and you don't see your blood glucose go way up, doesn't mean that you're doing okay with it. Because now we're going to talk about insulin resistance. I know some of you that have been around for a while are like, do we have to go over this again, Bob? Yeah, well, because I broke 2,100 subscribers today. So we've got some new people, and they need this information just like you needed this information a couple months ago. We'll start with the worst medical advice in the history of the world. Eat 5 or 6 small meals a day. And why this is not bad advice, but the worst advice ever, is each time you eat even a little bit, it makes your insulin go up to deal with the carbs, the sugar, the starches, all that stuff that you're putting in your body. A lot of big trucks out here today. So, the way I understand it, the way Dr. Bickman explained it, is that besides its many other things that it does, insulin is a hormone, and it is the primary trigger for either storing energy or burning stored energy, i.e. your fat. And no matter how hard you exercise, no matter what you do, if your insulin level is elevated, it's physically, metabolically, biologically impossible to unlock your fat and start burning that as fuel. So that's why eventually the target of a carnivore is to eat either 2 meals a day in a 6-hour eating window, which then gives you 18 hours of fasting that lets your insulin come back down, and then you can start getting into your fat stores and burning those. Or what I've been doing, I've been eating 1 meal a day, which gives me, depending on when I eat, anywhere from 23 to 26 hours of fasting in a day. Which gives my insulin plenty of time to come down. And while we're on the subject, as long as you're eating carnivore, getting as close to low carb as possible, you don't actually have to fast. As you know, you'll see a lot of people out there talking about protein sparing, modified, fast diet, whatever it's called. You don't have to do any of that stuff if you're on carnivore, because the insulin spike from protein is very minimal, and the insulin spike from fat is non-existent. You're pretty much always in a constant state of ketosis with maybe an hour or so off right after you've eaten a big meal. Depending on how much you ate, there's a lot of variables that go into it. But technically, on a carnivore diet, you're in a fasted state. If you're eating one meal a day, you're in a fasted state 21 to 22 hours a day. So there's no reason to mess with all that other stuff. All that other stuff is what I like to call the 10%. Just eating the meat and adding salt and drinking the water will get you to 90% of where you want to go. Then when you're within 10% of your goal, you can go ahead and start messing around with all that stuff. But for right now, just eat the meat, add the salt, and drink the water. Oh, there's some loads of hay coming in behind me there. Yeah, one of these days when I walk the other way, you'll see that there are actually cows in the field just on the other side. Of the church. So I'm definitely out in the country here. I'm starting to sweat a little bit inside this windbreaker because it's not as windy now as it was when I left. And the sun sure does feel good. But yeah, so just stick to the 90%. Eat the meat, add the salt, drink the water. And then when you get to within 10% of your goals, you can start messing with all that other stuff. Now, the one thing you might have to mess with early is your fat to protein ratio, because everybody's a little bit different. I would start with 1-to-1. Half your calories are coming from fat, half your calories are coming from protein. That's a good baseline to start with. And then if you're not seeing results, the first step I would do is up the fat. You can go all the way to 2-to-1, where, 2/3 of your calories are coming from fat. And when I say try it for a while, I don't mean you try it for 3 or 4 days or a week, and then you throw up your hands in disgust and say, wow, this just isn't working. Well, you got to give it at least 30 days every time you change something. Preferably 45 or 60 if you can hang on that long. But 30 should be enough to tell you if you're on the right track. And if you're still not getting the results you want, up the protein. There are a few people out there that need a higher protein, lower fat count, but there aren't very many of those. I know it's counterintuitive, but if you want to lose fat, you have to eat fat. That's just the way it is. Because I do want to take just a moment, as I'm coming in the backside of the church parking lot here, to talk about the Randall cycle. If you want to know all the ins and outs of it, you can watch Bart Kay. He's a professor. He knows what he's talking about on this stuff. I've watched his videos on the Randall cycle several times, and it just makes my brain hurt. He brings all those graphs out, and they make perfect sense while I'm listening to them, but I just don't retain it. I mean, the second the video's over, I'm like, what the heck did I just watch? Because it is very technical. And he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what the Randall cycle boils down to is fat, good, carbs, bad. Fat and carbs together, awful. And I really think that's all we need to know about the Randall cycle as people who are out here just trying to get healthy. Because we're not professors, we're not scientists. Well, some of you may be, but I'm certainly not. So, there should be a video over here. Show you the entire October challenge. Another one should pop up over here that you haven't seen before. Don't forget to get out there and be 1% better today. I will see you tomorrow.